And the weekend is here, so it's time for our regular family-friendly movie reviews with Bob Waliszewski. He's Director of Focus on the Family's Entertainment Review Department called Plugged In Online. Bob, let's talk first about the new animation called Mr. Peabody and Sherman. What you think?
You know, I can recall watching in the 60s as part of the Rocky and Bullwinkle show, the shorts, Mr. Peabody and Sherman. The animation was pretty cheesy, and they always ended with some kind of cheesy as well pun. Didn't go into the screening with a whole lot of expectations, but I walked out and I was like, that wasn't too bad. And especially wouldn't have been too bad if I'd have been a 10 or a 12 or maybe even up to a 14-year-old in the film. Essentially, it's this. Mr. Peabody is a genius dog and has an adopted boy named Sherman, and they have a time travel machine. They call it the Wayback Machine. And they've time traveled so much that Sherman has met the likes of Gandhi and George Washington and Van Gogh and Jackie Robinson. And the first day of his school class, he puts his hand up a lot to answer questions, not because he knows it so much from memory, is because he remembers meeting the people and remembers what they said. A girl doesn't believe him. He ends up accidentally admitting or saying that he had met George Washington, and of course he then becomes bullied for that. Eventually they time travel together and have all sorts of adventures, like I said, that turned out to be fairly clever. From a family perspective, gave this one a 4 out of 5, knocked it down for some bathroom humor, and there's a bit of parental disrespect early on. I think families can walk through this one fairly well with Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Rated PG, I might add.
All right, before we go, Son of God is doing very well in theaters. Of course, it is about the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, so it has graphic violence. What are your recommendations for families?
Well, that's a really great question. It was a #2 film, by the way, last week with a $26.5 million take at the box office. I'm so glad that it did that well. As far as age appropriateness, I've been saying roughly around the age of 12 on up. Now, when I saw it, I happened to notice that there was a much younger boy in the audience, and I recently read an email from a family that took a 7- and a 9-year-old who were just saying that their kids loved it, and the 7-year-old had crawled up in the mom's lap during the crucifixion scene, and she thought it was perfectly acceptable. Personally, I think that was a bit young. When I'm reading that email, when I'm seeing that boy in the screening, I thought, I don't think I would have done it. It's not in Passion of the Christ territory as far as the gruesomeness of the flogging or the gruesomeness of the crucifixion, but it's certainly a lot more so than, say, you'd find in the Jesus film.
Indeed, indeed. Bob, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
You bet.